Hello and welcome to the Dead Man Walking podcast. I am your host, Fred Ruttman, also known as Repeatedly Dead Fred, author of the medical trauma memoir, The Summer I Died 20 Times, which is actually what happened to me, which is how I became Repeatedly Dead Fred. Today, I am here with Barbara Demone, who fits into three of the four categories that I normally talk about. So she's going to talk a little bit about overcoming adversity, um, maybe a little bit about her business career, and a new book she's written called Good Morning Life, which is based on a little bit of adversity that she overcame and how it's changed her life and how she'd like to help you change yours a little bit. So, Barbara, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much, Fred. Very
Um,
happy to be here.
I guess I'll just ask you to talk a little bit about your origin story. Like you had, like me, near death event or a death event, and I guess that's what started this whole adventure. So, do you want to tell the audience a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So I guess I'll call it my happiness journey, really started, or mindfulness journey started when I had eclampsia with my first son, Carter, when he was born. And so it came on very suddenly. I ended up having a seizure and ended up in the ICU twice. I ended up having two seizures, a postpartum seizure as well. So I was very, very sick. And while I was recovering, I had this epiphany that, wow, life is so precious, precarious. We really
Mhm.
don't know when it will when it will end for us. And so I didn't want to take any more moments in my life for granted. I wanted to figure out how, in a busy life, like I was gonna have a family now, kids, and a career, full-time career. And I wanted to figure out how am I going to live in each day in happiness.
Mhm.
And it was while I was recovering in the hospital. We were watching a Blue Jay game on the TV, and the the camera kind of panned across the crowd, and people just looked kind of like meh, like not looking at their phones, not
Mhm.
really happy. And in that moment, I was really like, what I wouldn't have given to be there,
Mhm.
just to feel good, just to be healthy, um, and to do something with my family or friends. I would have been in such joy,
Mhm.
and so I'm like, how do I capture that joy on a daily basis, right? A feeling of just gratefulness for being alive. How do I keep that up when I go back to the real world and get back into some of the autopilot that we tend to do, right? Taking kind of
Mhm.
just daily life for granted. So while I was on maternity leave, Eckhart Tolle was having a webinar with he was doing a webinar with Oprah on his book
Mhm.
A New Earth. And so he was talking about living in the present moment and just exactly what I wanted to do. And so I listened with such intensity, and I practiced the things that they were doing. And it was simple, just mindfulness exercises to be aware of your body, be aware of the space that you're in any given moment. Um, looking at anything. Nature's amazing for bringing us into the present moment, looking
Mhm.
at trees, grass, just with pure kind of awe and presence, and kind of with a beginner mindset when you look at everything. So I did the practices, and I read more books. I did a bunch more research, and I realized it's very impactful and it makes a huge difference. It was one day at work. So I work in the financial services industry. And I was coming out of a pretty stressful meeting with some of our executives and some colleagues. And a colleague said to me, "How are you always so calm in these heated situations?" And I stopped. And this was about 5 or 6 years after I started practicing, and I'm like, wow, that's pretty remarkable because I never would have thought of myself as calm before. I was kind of a type A personality. Um, and thought this mindfulness practice, the living in the moment, and not, it really makes a difference in my, I've already noticed it in my personal life a little bit. My relationships were smoother, and now in my working life, like this, it's really showing the benefits. And I was just practicing in the real world. I started, like, when I went back to work, I started journaling on my GO train commute. Every day I would just journal, and that was a way of being mindfully aware of the thoughts. And I turned it into a bit of a gratitude journal as I was doing more research and realized the importance of gratitude in shifting our mindset. So my journal became a bit of a gratitude journal. So I was doing that every day. And this is when my colleague said that to me. That was the moment that I'm like, wow, I have changed. Nothing notable on the outside. Like, I still had the same career, same family, many of the same friends, but it was how I was showing up, how I was able to deal with different circumstances. Like I said, my relationships were stronger, clearer, less drama, less, um, you know, any of any of that negative stuff. It was going away, and it was, just life became a little bit easier, right? And
Mhm.
and when he said that, I'm like, if I can do it, anyone can do it. And so I wanted to. That's when the idea of the book came into my
Mhm.
mind, because, um, I think many people could benefit from it, whether you are working in, full
Mhm.
time kind of high stress career. Whether it doesn't matter what you're doing, you can always, benefit from being in the moment, looking at life with a positive mindset, and yeah, embracing things that come our way, right? And
Okay, I'm
and
going to give
so
you a
yeah.
chance to breathe now.
Okay. Thanks.
um, so could you fill in a couple of the blanks, starting with what eclampsia is for the people in the audience who might not know? And
Yeah.
then second, a little bit about Eckhart, because he's kind of a cultish figure. So there are people who might not know what he's all
Hmm.
about.
Okay. Okay, so first of all, eclampsia, it's a pregnancy related condition, and it's basically your organs just shut down. You're kind of like allergic to the pregnancy, and so,
Mhm.
my organs just started shutting down. Kidneys, everything, was shutting down. So the cure for eclampsia is basically getting the baby out of out of you,
Sure.
so that you can start to heal. And so that's what happened. I had an emergency C-section.
Mhm.
And luckily, my son was 37 weeks gestation, so he was healthy and fine, um, thankfully. But that's, yeah, that's kind of in a nutshell what eclampsia is.
Okay. And
Yeah. And
Eckhart?
then and so Eckhart Tolle is, he's a spiritual leader. He's author of, a couple books, or more than two. He has, his probably most popular is The Power of Now.
Mhm.
But he's also written the New Earth, Awakening to Your Life's Purpose. Those are both very powerful books, which I enjoyed a lot. And then he has other books like Stillness Speaks, and he's got a children's book as well that's,
Mhm.
related to, living in the moment, basically being
Mhm.
mindful.
So
And
your
yeah,
book
so
is published now?
my book is published. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
published late 2020. It's, yeah, I can show you. Good Morning Life.
Mhm.
One woman waking up to, happiness one moment at a time.
Mhm. So I find it
Yeah,
interesting, and
yeah,
maybe I mentioned this on the phone when we talked the other week.
yeah.
Um, People don't usually come to accountants for guidance on mindfulness, help me
Yes,
with my taxes and stuff like that. So I
yeah.
find it very interesting that you've jumped so far out of your comfort zone to do this project and to help others. And you mentioned something very interesting, is that people are noticing your mindfulness. Isn't that
Hmm.
just,
Yeah.
almost otherworldly? Like, you expect to
Hmm.
change yourself. You don't
Hmm.
expect to change other people by your own behaviors, but yet it happens. I know it's
Yeah,
happened with me.
yeah. It's amazing the impact, and the impact that we have just by the energy that we bring to
Mhm.
situations, I find. Um, many times I think we focus on the words that we're saying and all of that, but sometimes it's not necessarily, it's just the presence, the energy that you're bringing being with people.
Mhm.
We pick up on it. We pick up on that with each other. Um,
I think when you
but
boil it down,
yeah,
I mean, that's all we are is chemicals and energy.
yeah, yeah,
And the
yeah,
type of energy you choose to put out is, again, it's a choice.
yeah. It's a choice and it's very impactful. Yeah. And it's funny, so when you say, yeah, an accountant, it's true, right? Like I have yeah, accounting background, financial services industry. I think for many this seems like a very different thing, but I think people are very dynamic. People are more complex than we sometimes give each other
Mhm.
credit for. And I think we tend to, we can put labels on each other, and
Mhm.
that can really limit us. I actually just did a little talk at we have these family tables at our organization,
Mhm.
for inclusion and diversity, and we spoke about mindfulness in relation to inclusion and diversity and how we see people. And it's amazing how our preconditioned thoughts and perceptions can really get in the way of seeing how we see other people, but also ourselves, and judgments that we put on ourselves. We can kind of keep each other in a box. So it was, I think that did kind of take a bit of a leap for me to get that courage just to go into a totally, it feels different than the accounting,
Mhm.
business world that I live in most of the time, right? But
Mhm.
it's amazing if you start to do leadership sessions, and which I've done a lot of leadership courses. The beginning of it is always on self-awareness. And
Mhm.
so there's really a strong interconnection actually of mindfulness and happiness, and how it impacts us as leaders, and um,
Mhm.
anyone really, employees, but leaders are so impactful um, because of the role modeling and the impact they have on the organization.
Mhm.
So there's really there's a really a stronger connection than you might think. um,
Mhm.
and
Because
and
if
that's why
anybody's
I'm sorry.
done
Go
any accounting, it's
ahead.
primarily rules driven,
Mhm,
right?
mhm,
It's just following formulas, and
mhm.
mindfulness is, I guess, in a way, it's a formula of, you know, your the first step is learning how to be mindful,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
then all the other rules seem to just fit in.
Yeah,
But I bet you, I guess you don't do a lot of pure accounting anymore. But if you were,
yeah.
your mindfulness would make you a better accountant
Yes,
or
absolutely.
whatever profession you're in.
Yeah. And it absolutely makes me a better leader and bank regulator, which is which is
Mm-hmm.
where I am now. But I think that's why I did, like in my book it's a happiness formula. So
Mm-hmm.
and like you say, presence is the first. I call it presence. It's like mindful awareness.
Mm-hmm.
That's the foundational one. Gratitude
Mm-hmm.
is there too. There's 8 elements, but maybe that's the way I think in the accounting terms. It is. That's I've made it into the formula, but it is. It's something that we can practice and get better at, just like anything else. And
So it's kind of your emotional balance sheet.
yeah, I like that. Yeah.
So sorry if I'm glancing off to my
Mhm.
right. I'm beside our deck, and there's a squirrel rally or something going on, and just like probably 20 squirrels just going back and forth and back and forth. So
Oh
I'm
my
I'm being a little
gosh.
less mindful
Yeah.
than I should be right now. I apologize. So,
No, that's good. That's a form of mindfulness that you're aware of your surroundings, right? And that
mhm.
sounds pretty remarkable. 20 squirrels rallying.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a mating season something around
Yeah.
now or what, but
Yeah.
I've never seen anything like this before.
That's funny.
So I understand you did a book signing
Yeah.
recently.
Yeah. Yeah.
You want to tell us about that?
Yeah, I was recently at Indigo at First Canadian Place. I actually have another date coming up in October 25th. I will
Hmm.
be back. And so that's in the financial services district downtown Toronto. first Canadian place. It was a great experience, and I think I love bringing together. It's in the financial services district where I work,
Hmm.
and I feel like it was just such a great energy seeing like old colleagues and friends,
Hmm.
and I met tons of people coming by that were just intrigued by um what is this happy face
Hmm.
in a coffee cup, and
Hmm.
what are you talking about happiness and and mindfulness and in a working environment, right?
Yeah.
But it's
For,
it's such a synergistic it's a benefit for sure for
for
our
those of
working
the
world.
audience that don't know, Indigo is the Canadian Barnes and Noble. It's the national book chain where you could buy, you know, everything, every sort of knickknack, books, Kindles, um, probably a chemical weapon if you really needed one. They have absolutely everything there. So
Yeah.
it's a big deal to get a spot in an Indigo. It really is. So congrats to you.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you. Yeah, I'm excited to be back as well. And hope to see some of you October 25th.
Hmm. So if people want to find you before that, how do they find you?
So I'm on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, Barbara Demone. It's
Hmm.
BARBARADEMONE. And goodmorninglife.net is my website. You can see I've got my upcoming events, and I've got little place for quotes, happiness quotes, little reminders. I kind of feel like we need, like, even though I've been practicing for so long, I still go back to my own book and read pieces of it, because I
Hmm.
think our daily world and society, it quite easily pulls us away, tries to pull us in different directions. And so
For
I
sure.
I come back, and so I feel like that's what I try to do with my website and my Instagram and Facebook posts, is to just reminders, just little reminders to
Yeah.
bring us back to the happiness formula and the different
It's sort
elements.
of like life has its own gravity pull,
Hmm.
and you have to fight it
Exactly.
to get back to your
Exactly.
roots. So,
Yes.
some people do it through prayer, some people do it through meditation, and others do it through regular mindfulness.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Exactly.
What
Have
did
a
your
great.
family think when you started this practice? Did they think you were a bit of a wingnut, or?
I don't even think they, like, it wasn't obvious, right? Well, and
Mhm.
most of like it started, I was journaling on the GO train, so nobody really saw me
Mhm.
even doing it, right? Um, yeah, so I didn't get, but my family's pretty open-minded, so I don't think they would
Mhm.
have had any, negative judgments or whatever. But
Mhm.
yeah.
And what about the actuaries and people like that at work that are even more stereotyped than the accountants?
I know. Actually, it's been amazing. Like, I've done quite a few talks at my work now, and
Mhm.
the people have embraced it so much, and I think they
Mhm.
see, sometimes we do little I'll do a little exercise with them, and I think when you actually practice, even if it's for a second, just to do that, dropping into your body, feeling your breath coming and going out of your body, it's amazing how, yeah, you get it pretty quickly. It's like, yeah, that's pretty powerful, and it only took me like a minute to do that. So
Mhm.
yeah, people have really embraced it and been very positive at my work. So yeah, I keep getting asked to do more talks, and so it's
Mhm.
it's excellent, because it's such a win-win. Um,
Mhm.
when we bring our full selves to work, when we're happy, we're making other people happy, and it's a more productive, creative, engaging environment, right? Somewhere you actually want
Mhm.
to be. You want to go to work
Mhm.
when it's like that. And your
Mhm.
relationships, just like I was saying, my relationships, like my friendships are deeper, and my partnership with my husband, but also my relationships with my coworkers. Like, I've gotten to know them a lot better on a deeper level,
Mhm.
and you can work so much easier with people when you know them, and respect them, and
Mhm.
so it's such a benefit to organizations. So
Mhm.
I am working on another book that's more geared to the business world, so
Okay.
stay tuned for
Do you have
that.
a
But
title
yeah,
for that yet?
my working title is Working Happy, but
Mhm.
yeah, still in the early stages. But I'm
Mhm.
excited for that one because I think that'll be yeah, that'll be bringing it even more hardcore into the business world.
So coming from the intermittent fasting world, one of the things
Mhm.
that happens to people when they finally get in the zone and they flip that metabolic switch
Mhm.
is their hormones get balanced and you
Mhm.
become more aware of your body and things like satiety and real hunger and your brain fog. So just by the way it works, it brings you a form of mindfulness that people aren't even aware of. And when professional athletes talk about how they can see a play and it seems like it's in slow motion, the real world's going along, but what they're seeing in their brain is just everything slowed down and they can just observe. I mean, that's mindfulness, at the platinum level, I guess.
It
But
is. It is.
and that's what allows you to listen to your colleagues.
Yeah. I should try more intermittent fasting. I did it once with a colleague who does it for religious reasons, so I was intrigued and he was
Mhm.
explaining it to me exactly kind of what you're saying, the benefit some of the benefits of it.
Mhm.
And yeah, it's fascinating. So I'm going to do a little bit more of that. I think it's
Mhm.
you're right.
Well, I'll
It's
recommend a book
yeah.
for you,
Okay,
uh,
okay.
Fast, Feast, Repeat
Okay.
by Jen Stevens, Jen like the beverage.
Yeah.
And she's my fasting guru.
Yeah.
She wrote
Yeah.
the foreword on my book. Um, so there isn't much about intermittent fasting and the various formats of it that she doesn't know. And
Awesome.
yeah,
Fast,
she's
feast, repeat. Got it.
yeah.
I'm gonna check it out.
Jen, I have now sold 14,000 books for you. Yeah, she's a wonderful woman. Um,
Awesome.
so, what do you see yourself doing with your mindfulness? Do you think you can like get a book tour out of this, or uh, are you self-published, or are you with a publisher?
I'm self-published. Yeah, I might
Hmm.
for my second book, I might think about going traditional publishing route.
Hmm.
Um, but I haven't got there yet. And yeah, it's a good question, you know? Like I kind of have the broad objectives of, you know,
Hmm.
I want to help more people, you know,
Hmm.
read the book and or the books when my next one comes out
Hmm.
and start to realize and feel and choose happiness too, right? You're starting to make that choice. That's the very first step, I think, that we have to do, like choose to go down this path of prioritizing our own happiness.
Hmm.
So I want to spread happiness basically, and so but I leave it somewhat up to the universe to exactly how, right?
Hmm.
So I take the daily steps and like what's the next right thing to do? What do I feel drawn to do? And then but I don't have an exactly like um you know, whether it's a book tour
Hmm.
or what it is. I'm still really enjoying my career in the financial
Hmm.
services industry. So we'll see where, yeah, where they continue to intersect. And yeah, we'll see.
I think you have a great home field advantage for this um, because you have branches across the country.
Hmm.
I mean, it's easy to go to one of your peers in another branch and say, "Can I speak uh, at your office? Virtually or physically?"
Yeah, yeah,
And I know you also, like Stephen, our friend in common,
yeah.
has traveled to Asia,
Hmm.
and I don't know if you also do stuff like that as well, but I mean, you're there anyway. They might as well take advantage of you.
Yes, yes. No, I would love to. I love to travel, so that would definitely be something I'd be open for, open to.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay, so universe, start
Yes.
listening.
Exactly.
Get Barbara hooked up.
Thanks,
So,
Fred.
have you had talks with your kids about mindfulness, or do they just sort of see this is what mom's doing,
Hmm.
and that's just mom? or do you try to educate them a little bit?
Yes, that's a really good question. I do. They're both teenagers now.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a tricky balance of, they don't want to listen to their mom as much these days.
Mm-hmm.
Their friends are more the people that they're listening to. But so so my younger one read the book
Mm-hmm.
from front to back. It was so cute when he first started reading it, and he was maybe like 20 pages in, and he just looks up at me and he's like, Mom, this is actually really good. Like, thank you. And he's 12 at the time, right? So
Mm-hmm.
12-year-old boy, but I'm like, wow, thanks, Austin. That's great. And he kept reading.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have a practice with both my boys at night. Every night we'll do three thankfuls. We call it the three thankfuls. So we say
Mm-hmm.
three things that we're thankful for. So that's our gratitude practice. So I guess in some ways we're embedding some of the mindfulness things just in things we do, but I'm not preaching it, right? But
Mm-hmm.
we're practicing it. Um, and the night after he finished the book, his one of his thankfuls was for my book, and
Oh, how
and it was
sweet.
so sweet. Um, so I'm hoping by him reading it, like he's picked up more than just the gratitude, but he's kind of embedding. He's got some foundation of knowledge there. I do share research
Mm-hmm.
about the benefits of mindfulness, kind of the who, what, when, where, why, how.
Mm-hmm.
Before I get into kind of I share my journal entries, which shows what it looks like practicing in the real world with, two
Mm-hmm.
young kids at the time. So yeah, that, and then yeah, the gratitudes, and in conversations when we're dealing with different challenges, if they've had a situation with at school or something, um, we'll talk through how to deal with it, and it's from that mindfulness perspective. But I
Mm-hmm.
find the preaching, like the you should do that, doesn't really work these days. So
Yeah.
it's got to be more just practicing modeling it, and
Mm-hmm.
I think I try to do with my kids. Yeah.
Do you ever have a day or two where you forget or you get interrupted in the thank yous,
Hmm.
and then the kids will say, "Mom, we didn't do this."
Yeah. You mean like we won't, like if we forget to do the thankfuls at night? Is that what you
Yeah.
mean? Yes. Oh yeah, they love it. Like
Mm-hmm.
yeah, they'll be like, we haven't done it yet. We got to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So they actually really enjoy it. It's part of the routine, and so it's a good question. They definitely will. They don't want to go to bed without it now. Yeah.
Yeah. So unfortunately, Barbara, we're running out of time. But I want to get one last question in. Do you want to talk a little bit about the kind of things that you journal? I know journaling on a GO train is not
Mhm.
easy.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's kind of chaotic on some of
Yeah.
those rides.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Um, so usually it's like it would start with me starting to be aware of my environments, right? So you'll see
mhm,
from the book and some of the journal entries, I'll start with kind of the surroundings, like, if it's a cold day outside or there's frost on the windows, I might make
mhm,
some observations about that, and the you know generally the mood on the train, like is it quiet, is it sleepy, like if it's an early morning, it's like, oh, it's a sleepy train. And then usually it's what's going on in my mind. So if um you know depending if there's something that's happening at work that I'm struggling with, an issue,
mhm,
or something with the kids that we're trying to figure out an issue with them, then I'll kind of journal my thoughts about that. One of
mhm,
them, I think one of them was my husband and I had a little spat in the GO train parking lot on the way to so
mhm,
it was like, how did we get over that disagreement that we had? And I kind of wrote through that, and it's funny, by
mhm,
the end of my journal entry, because you're writing like, this is how I'm feeling, I'm so angry, blah 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 blah.
mhm.
And by the end of it, but then I'm like, okay, but what about his perspective? And oh, he was tired and he did this. So by the end of my journal entry, it's like, oh, I think we're okay. Like, he didn't mean to
Yeah.
do it. And I feel like totally, like, it's like whatever the issue was, that was just one example. Whatever the issue was, it's a little less,
Mhm,
you've kind of worked through it,
mhm.
and it's out there and it's okay, I can move on now.
So do you think you journal like 250 words? I remember when I initially looked into journaling, people have to write 1,000 words or it's not worth anything.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
Yeah. It's a good question how many words. Every day is a little bit different, but there weren't like super long journal entries. They
mhm,
were, a page or two.
which makes
Yeah.
it
On
much
my
easier
phone.
to be
Yeah.
consistent with it.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah. And
Okay,
I didn't
so
have a preset idea like I have to do this many words. It was just whatever was there for me that day and whatever
mhm.
time I had. If I, yeah, ran out of time on the go train, then I'd be
And
short.
do you use different colored pencils and bedazzle your journal and everything like the kids?
No, I think pretty boring. I was just kind of a blue or black pen, whatever I had in my in my
Okay.
work bag with me.
Well, Barbara, thank you so much for coming on and talking with us. Barbara is the author of Good Morning Life, and I think it's already been successful for you. I hope it continues to be successful and you get some more speaking gigs. To the audience, thank you for tuning in to the Dead Man Walking podcast, and we'll see you next episode. Have a great day. Bye bye.
Thanks so much. Bye.
You're welcome.